Welcome to Unofficial Canon, a Star Wars podcast. My name is Tavin.
I'm Brendan.
And we are finally continuing our journey through the Star Wars lore, more specifically the films. And we're starting Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones today.
Yeah, last week we touched on some comic books.
Which was a bit of a, we were all over the place with that.
But to be fair, the comic books were all over the place.
That's true.
I feel like it's fitting.
I think if we ever get to some other comic books, we're going to do some choice ones, I think, in the future, and then it'll be a little bit easier. But before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, hopefully not too long. If you're the kind of person who just wants to jump right in the podcast, maybe fast forward like 2 minutes, and you'll probably get to where we're talking about the actual film. First thing is, we've had a bit of feedback from people who actually listen to our podcast.
Hello out there, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the biggest ask has been for slightly longer episode lengths.
You got it. I don't know why, but you got it.
So we're going to go for minimum 45 minutes, and then we'll probably close to an hour. So if you listen to the comic book episode last week, you got the new episode length.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed that, congratulations on sitting through an hour of rambling.
I think it's going to be better for us too moving forward, just because, Attack of the Clones used to be the longest Star Wars movie, and there's just a lot to unpack in it. So I don't think people want, we did 10 episodes for Phantom Menace. I don't think they want more than that for Attack of the Clones.
No. And if we hit 10 episodes for this movie,
I'm hoping 8. I'm hoping 8's kind of the magic number. Second piece of housekeeping is, after we do Attack of the Clones, we'll be taking a slight break from the prequel era to talk about some other EU stuff, old EU stuff.
Yes.
I'm not going to spoil what we're going to talk about, but that's what it's going to be. But after that, we are going to start digging into the Clone Wars TV show.
Yes. So what we need from you guys is suggestions of arcs that you guys want to see us talk about. Because I don't know about you, Tavin. Do you want to sit through 6 seasons of Clone Wars and talk about each episode?
We are certainly not going to watch the whole show.
No.
I mean, I have watched the whole show.
Yes, I think everyone who's a big enough Star Wars nerd to be like, we need to do a podcast, has seen all the Clone Wars once. I'm not doing it again, though.
Yeah. No, so if there's a particular arc, which whether you think is kind of interesting from a canon standpoint, or you think is just not very good and you want us to dig into why it's not very good.
Yeah, we'll take both the good and the bad.
Please let us know. You can, you could comment on the millions of different places. Our Facebook, if you listen to us on YouTube, you can comment there. We have a tweeter. We do. I think both of us don't really know how to tweet very well, but you can tweet at us and
help us learn
your suggestions. And then the last option is you can email us via unofficialcanon@gmail.com. And yeah, we're going to seriously, unless we get an outpouring of suggestions, I think we'll just do whatever anybody wants. And then a couple of our favorites as well.
Yes.
I think that's it. That's it for now.
That's it for housekeeping?
That's the housekeeping.
Let's dig into this
that was about
ridiculous piece of film.
That was about 2 minutes. So now
Perfect.
we will jump into this film.
If you jumped ahead, welcome back. You chose wonderfully.
Yeah. You missed out. Or you didn't. I don't know. Just like with Phantom Menace, I have read the novelization of Star Wars Attack of the Clones. Brendan is clapping for me and bumping his mic, which I'm sure is making a wonderful listening experience for everybody.
Yes. Deal with it.
I just want to quickly talk about my experience with the book.
Go ahead.
Generally.
Because you said something that interested me.
So first of all, I didn't really remember Attack of the Clones very well. Going back into this whole research project for the podcast. So the first thing I did was I read the book. And just like Phantom Menace, the book has a bunch of more stuff in it that you don't get in the movie. And always a part of the book is the author explaining characters' feelings and motivations a bit more in depth. And I will say that I liked the book.
Yeah, this is what blew me away.
I enjoyed it. The story was fine. I connected with the characters on an emotional level to the point where I cried while reading this book. Not full on ugly cried, but I teared up a bit, right?
Yeah.
I felt things while I read this book.
Yeah.
Just like when we were watching Phantom Menace, and I was talking about how watching that movie in a different era of my life completely recontextualizes the story for me. I feel like the same is for the Attack of the Clone story, because you have Anakin falling in love, which is something that, you know, in the last 5 years I have done myself. I'm now married, and his mother dies, and my mother is still alive, but, you know, I'm getting to that point where one of my parents passing away is not too far out into the future.
Yeah.
So that thought was, I don't know, it connected me more emotionally to the story. And then I watched the movie. And the movie, I did not have the same, it's the exact same, like, there's nothing in the book that drastically changes, but I just could not connect. And it's because of the performances. I'm also going to say the direction, because there's lines that you read in the book, specifically that Anakin says, that don't come off creepy or whining, because your brain is just kind of like putting it in the best light possible, right?
Exactly, because you're making the story in your head.
And then the way that George has told
Hayden Christensen
to play Anakin is bizarre.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So we'll leave it at there. And then we'll just jump in here. So let's start with the crawl.
Okay.
I actually have the crawl all written out here. I figured that was a good place to start.
Well, let's go.
So, Brendan, if you weren't aware, there is unrest in the Galactic Senate.
Yes.
Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic. They haven't left the Republic. Yeah. They're thinking about it.
Yeah.
The separatist movement, under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku. I don't really know what's very mysterious about him. We basically know his entire backstory.
And not just we, the viewer, but everyone in the movie.
Well, the only thing that might be mysterious is that no one really knows what he's been up to for the last 10 years.
Okay, yeah.
Other than like because he's like the heir to a family, and I suspect that was one of the reasons he left the Jedi Order.
He's going to go inherit his countdom.
Yeah.
Because he is a count.
He is a count. If you didn't get that, Count Dooku used to be a Jedi.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, spoilers, but this whole thing is a spoiler alert. So.
Yeah, basically. So under the mysterious Count Dooku, it's made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy, which to me doesn't make any sense. Like, you haven't even had people leave the Republic yet. They've just declared their intentions.
Exactly.
And somehow this has made it difficult for the Jedi to keep order?
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a bunch of people on these separatist planets yelling, get woke and sheeple, and then the Jedi are like, stop.
There's like Occupy Wall Street on like thousands of solar system planets.
There's Occupy banking like whatever the equivalent is. Space hippies being like, don't let the corporo fascist governments rule the Republic. And then the Jedi are like, that's not what's going on. But you know, nobody's listening to the Jedi because they're just puppets of the current order, man.
You're too tied to the fascists, man.
Exactly. Wake up.
Well, it's possible, but I would say much like in Phantom Menace, when there's like the death toll is catastrophic, but we never see people dying. This movie still suffers from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Where it's like everything you see, everything is fine. The economy seems to be thriving. Small business is doing well.
Small business is doing great.
Yeah.
You want a diner on Coruscant? Not a problem.
Back to the crawl. Senator Amidala, who is now a senator.
Hey!
The former queen of Naboo, if you didn't see the last movie, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of creating an army of the Republic to assist the overwhelmed Jedi. Mm-hmm. So I double-checked this, and according to the Visual Dictionary, the Republic has no military.
Right.
They have nothing.
Yeah.
Which seems strange to me, which means they must depend on the military of like single systems.
Yeah.
That are part of the Republic.
So if we get into like big old galaxy spanning lore right now, right?
Yeah.
So we go to the post-Endor, post-Jakku, I guess, is now the defining moment of where the Empire breaks up. And we take a look at the New Republic coming along. We take a look at, from Bloodline, the stuff that Mon Mothma's doing. And Mon Mothma's like, the last thing we want is a military that's close to the Imperial military, because that makes a lot of people really uncomfortable and nervous. So the New Republic's not going to have a military. We're going to count on systems providing some defense for themselves. So I'm guessing that's what the Old Republic, but I mean, Old Republic, that's a loaded phrase.
But then who protects Coruscant, right? Like, to me, it seems ridiculous that they wouldn't have some kind of level of military.
Yeah, no, and I agree 100% because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It would be like if the U.S. was like, we're not going to have a military. Each state will have a military.
Yeah.
And that'll be it.
Yep.
Oh no, Mexico is attacking. I don't know why Mexico. Well, they're just upset at the tweets. They're just upset at the tweets. That would be the reason.
Exactly. We're getting too close.
And then it would be up to Texas.
Politics.
It would be up to Texas alone because everyone else would be like, I'm not coming down there.
Yep.
North Carolina ain't coming down there. Get out of here.
North Carolina ain't going. Alaska ain't doing it either. Never mind Hawaii. They ain't going for nothing.
The delegates from North Carolina demand that a research party is sent to confirm the report.
The presence of Mexican armies in Texas. We do not believe it. We need to see it for ourselves. We're going to send some wizards. One of them an old man, the other a boy. They will confirm or deny the presence of Mexicans. It's a mess. It's a mess. Like, no wonder, honestly, I don't know if the creation of this world, we're not even into the movie yet. We're still in the crawl. But I don't know if, like, when Lucas sat down and was like, well, how can we because for me, one of the most interesting questions in Star Wars is how does a society go from a democratic, peace-loving republic to a fascist military, like, so quickly, right? And so is this just George Lucas being ham-fisted about it, being like, they like the military because they didn't have one before?
Well, I think the answer to your question is simply war. And that's what he has told, right? I mean, there's these movies are filled with like George Bush era references.
Yes, I remember the time.
There are still similarities to the rise of Palpatine and Hitler. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all messed up because he's trying to say something about current times with the movies, but also still connected with Nazis, which just doesn't work.
No.
But yeah, I don't get the army thing. I think there should be an army. The New Republic had an army. They did. They had a fleet. It was destroyed.
Yeah. It was 4 ships.
But that's, that might be jumping ahead just a bit.
Well, obviously it is. It's jumping ahead like
70 years.
70 years from where we're supposed to be talking about.
So, leaving the crawl behind, we understand what's happening. They want to make an army. There's a vote in the Senate. Mm-hmm. Not Queen Amidala, sorry. Senator Amidala is going to vote on this thing. But before we get there, like in the Phantom Menace novelization, there are many scenes before we actually get to the movie scenes.
Right. So we get an epilogue or a prologue.
Basically, so the 2 main storylines that we see before we get to the attack on Padme's life is we're intercut between Tatooine and Naboo.
Okay.
So we see a little bit of Shmi and her new life on Tatooine.
Being a free woman.
Being a free housewife, basically.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my biggest questions when we hear that someone like bought her and then married her. It's like, which one came first?
Yeah.
And the author had the sense to be like, I need to establish that like her life is great and happy so that like what happens to her becomes a tragedy later on. So basically we have some scenes that establish that she loves her husband. She loves her new stepson, Owen Lars. She loves her new soon to be daughter-in-law, Beru, and that everything is hunky dory as far as.
And 3PO's with her.
And 3PO, which. It's funny because the book is like, Shmi sometimes found C-3PO annoying, but he also reminded her of Anakin. Oh. So it's like she keeps him around for that reason alone, basically. Then there's signs of Tusken Raiders around the farm, and like everyone's kind of really tense, and like Owen and Klieg Lars, her husband, go out with rifles and they're kind of guarding the place. And then the morning comes, and she just goes out to pick mushrooms.
Alone.
Why? Like,
she wanted to have a psychedelic day, man.
Oh man, it's just so like, it kind of fits within character, but like it's such a dumb move for like someone to be like, there are evil creatures outside that will murder me. Mm-hmm. I'll go outside.
Yeah.
Without a gun.
Yeah.
Or my husband or anything like that. So she gets captured, and Klieg Lars and Owen Lars kind of like put together a posse of farmers to go after her. Apparently, this Tusken tribe is a very large one that's been around for a really long time, and they just slaughter these farmers. Klieg Lars loses his leg, which is is something that's heavily in the book, but you see him in a chair at the funeral without a leg. But either than that, it's all these close-up shots where you don't see the leg, and I think part of that is because the book describes his injury. At one point, Anakin thinks that is a fresh wound, and I'm sure from a rating standpoint, they were like, you can't show that. You can't show a man who just lost a leg all wrapped up and bloodied. So yeah, it basically just establishes that she was taken, and here's why they aren't looking for her anymore, because they got messed up.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Basically, they talk about how like the moisture farming community will take like several generations to recover because of this massacre, right? So no one else wants to go after them. And like, there's no way that like Owen Lars is going to go out there by himself because he doesn't have magical space wizard powers.
No, exactly. Which is good. I think, establishing the Tusken Raiders as being as violent and creepy and horrible as they always were, like from back in the old EU times. It's nice to see staying consistent, and that's good. I like that.
Well, and it just is, I think it answers those two questions that I had whenever I watched the movie, which was, how was she taken, and why haven't you done anything about it?
Yes.
And the only explanation in the movie was like, I can't ride anymore until I heal. It's like, well, why doesn't Owen go out? Like, why doesn't anyone try anything? Like, she's been gone for a month. Like, go do something. So, and then that story is intercut with Padme on Naboo.
Okay. Getting elected as senator?
No. She's been senator for some time now.
Okay, so it's just her life.
Yeah, she's been senator for, I think, at least 2 years was the math that I did in my head. Probably a bit longer. And that's just based on the 10-year span. Because she was queen for 8 years. And so if she was elected the day before the first movie happened, math, right? So at least 2 years. No, she's having, there's a bunch of scenes with her family, specifically her sister Sola.
Okay.
And Sola's children. And this basically is what every late 20s person who is married or not married starts to feel when people are like, so when are you gonna settle down, and when are you gonna have kids? And it basically is established that Padme had never really thought about it at all until her sister's like, you should find a man, and you should get married, and you should have some children, because look how cute my children are.
Yeah. Well, look at how well that turned out for her.
And in fact, there's a lot of like Padme's family stuff in the book, and I know there are deleted scenes.
There are, and they shouldn't have been deleted.
Well, although there's one big flaw that they create in the canon, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, basically Padme with her sister, and then it's her. There's another scene where she's talking with the queen and the governor and Typho, and who was the guard from the first movie? It's not Typho, it's
Taikadana?
No.
I don't know.
It's something, I can't remember. Anyway, she's talking to those people, and they're talking about her going back for this vote.
Right.
And she's not really going back to vote. She's going back because she actually carries a lot of power in the Senate. Like, a lot of systems look to her now because of the whole Naboo crisis that happened.
Right.
So she wants to be there because she is against the idea of building an army. We can talk later about if that makes sense or not from her character perspective and what's happened to her. But she's against it. The weirdest thing about this is that, like, it's not like there was a previous assassination attempt on her life or like a threat. They just kind of logic that there might be some kind of danger to this whole her traveling there. So that's why they do the whole switcheroo in the movie. That's what you get.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then the only other scene that we quickly get is we get some Anakin excitedly headed back to Coruscant. Yeah, they're in hyperspace, and he's doing Anakin things to try to get to Coruscant faster.
Oh, so he's spinning while in hyperspace.
Possibly.
It's a good trick.
I believe Obi-Wan says that he's going to come out of hyperspace dangerously close to the planet.
Oh.
Which, again, just speaks to Anakin's issue with patience that we talked about last week.
I also think it speaks to Obi-Wan's issues with flying.
True. Obi-Wan has a lot of issues with flying.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're at the point where the movie starts.
Yay!
But before the movie starts, just because we're 20 minutes in and we still haven't actually talked about the movie, I would like to put forth to the members of the jury that over the next 8 to 10 episodes of Unofficial Canon podcast, I will show without reasonable doubt that Obi-Wan is A, a bad master.
Okay.
That Anakin is B, not a terrible Jedi.
Yeah.
And in fact should be writing the code of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And that C, I think that's it. I don't think I have any other points. Just basically Obi-Wan is a terrible master and like Anakin is not as whiny as people think.
I'm curious. I'm excited to see your case.
I'm sure you will be. Okay, so the movie starts. We have some ships flying towards Coruscant.
Yeah.
And they land.
Yeah.
And these are Naboo fighters.
Mm-hmm. And a Naboo silver
shiny ship.
Yeah.
I was so upset. I was looking in the visual dictionary for like a specific like
designation for the ship.
Nope, not there. Like it's the visual dictionary. Put the ships in there. Come on, get on it.
Well, you got to buy the ship book.
Oh yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
I'll have to get the ship book for the next.
Because like you would think, for instance, I have a book this time too. The New Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology.
With new being in quotation marks there.
Yes, because this came out around the same time as this movie.
Yes. Thus the Zam Wessel, the bounty hunter, on the cover of it.
But there's no like ships.
No, it's just guns and things.
Ships are not technology.
Yeah. Speaking of that book, we do have to do a little shout out.
Oh, yes. You know what to call them.
Yes. So we'd like to thank our friend Daniel, Destroyer of Worlds, I believe is what he wanted to be called. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's like an official title. Maybe he's got that on his business cards. I'm not too sure. But he did give us this Star Wars, the New Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology for our podcast.
Yes.
Because, we just don't have enough reference material at this point.
There's not enough.
We don't have the novelization. We don't have the...
A 2.5 hour movie to sit through.
The visual dictionary. And of course, let us not forget our Star Wars Bible. Star Wars, absolutely everything you need to know, updated and explained. Yeah. That's the only piece of official canon other than the movies that we use.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Don't use the internet, kids.
No, Wikipedia lies.
Yeah.
That just gives you Kevin's opinion on the movie.
Damn that Kevin.
Anyway, so the ships land. Typho, Captain Typho, who is her personal bodyguard leader guy, he steps out of his ship, and then there's another pilot who comes up to him, and he's like, well, I guess there was no danger at all. And the way that irony works...
As if on cue.
The main ship explodes.
Kablamo.
Well, there's a fire blast, but like the ship itself appears to be generally okay, which again, my continued complaint about these movies is like things get shot, and if they're not a person, they're fine.
Yep. Do you know how hard it is to come up with 2 computer models?
That's too much. So the pilot who Typho had been talking to is revealed to be Senator Padme.
Whew.
Which, I mean...
Could you imagine if she died there? I mean, that would be...
Can you imagine if they just blew up the whole platform and everyone died instead?
Or even. Now, hear me out. We're going to jump ahead a little bit. You know those 2 bugs that the probe droid poops out?
Yeah.
He should have put those two bugs on the ship, and then you have snakes on a plane. And if that didn't work, he should have used the explosions that took out an entire ship on her apartment.
I like the concept of the snakes on the plane because then you could have Mace Windu show up and be on the plane with the snakes, and he could be tired of these snakes on the plane.
He could be very
There's
tired.
a whole level of Star Wars canon missing here from this movie. Disney, you have the chance to go back and make... This will start to make things right.
Please give me Mace Windu space snakes on a space plane.
Anyway, Padme runs over to the double, whose name is Corday.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'd just like to point out that like she has 2 double/handmaidens in this movie. One's name is Corday, and the other's name is Dorme. So I like to imagine that she's got all her handmaids. She's like, you're Dorme, you're Corday. My name's Sarah. You're Corday. Just renames them all to be similar names to make it easier for them. She runs over to him, over her, sorry, and she's dying.
Yeah. It's sad.
And she's like, I failed you, Senator.
But you did your job.
I mean, technically speaking. And then it makes Padme's next line even the funnier because, like, her next line is just no, but I'm going to try to replicate the way that she does it. No. So, like, I imagine like Natalie Portman going to George Lucas and being like, so I'm saying no. Is that because, like, I'm disagreeing that she didn't do her job? Or am I saying no because she's dying? And George was like, probably both.
Yeah. Why can't it be both?
And then Natalie
what I need you to do is just say it faster and more intense.
And then Natalie Portman did her best.
I feel so bad. I feel so bad for every actor in this movie.
So yes, that happens. And then there's actually a scene that's in the book that's not in the thing.
Of course.
I'll skim through it quickly because it's not super important, but it is kind of interesting because it feels like something that could have been shot and they just cut out.
Right.
We cut to the Senate, and Palpatine is addressing the Senate about the Military Creation Act, and he's interrupted when somebody tells him something, and he informs the Senate that Senator Padme Amidala has been assassinated.
Oh.
And everyone is like, oh noes.
We need the army.
And they're arguing and they're arguing. There's another mention that the Senate's been around for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. So again, conflicting time.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is be like, the Republic was around for 1,000 years. The Jedi were around for 1,000 generations.
That makes more sense. Yeah, and then of course Padme shows up and everyone's happy about it.
Yeah, you didn't die. It was all just a bunch of unimportant people.
And then Palpatine puts off the vote again.
Okay.
Basically. And then we cut back to where the movie is, where it's Palpatine in his office with, like, again, 7 Jedi in the room. And he's like, I don't know how much longer I can put off the vote, my friends. I have 2 questions for this. One, and it's very ambiguous in the movie, do the Jedi want the army?
There's so much about everything that's confusing at this point because I don't know. I don't think so. It wouldn't make sense for them to want it, but yet they do, seemingly.
Well, I don't know if they're just being neutral or what, but it's like the fact that they're having a meeting with Palpatine right after when the vote was supposed to take place, and Palpatine's like, I don't know how much longer I can put off this vote. My question is, it becomes confusing because does putting off the vote make it more likely that the bill will pass or fail?
We don't know.
And I don't know. And the movie fails to tell us.
Exactly.
Because the politics are confusing in this movie.
Well, and this is, so I love me a good political thriller. And this is where I think like the prequels really, really don't deliver, is that they're designed to be a good political thriller, but they're designed to be a good political thriller for 8-year-olds. So when you start to like want to understand the politics, none of it makes sense because nobody sat down and actually like made sure it makes sense. If you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a political thriller for 8-year-olds is probably a good.
That's Attack of the Clones.
I think that's Phantom Menace too, though, right?
Yeah.
Because the one, and we'll get into this before, but the one thing that Phantom Menace did that really stuck in my mind is when they don't actually vote ever.
Yeah.
But they act like they did and things passed.
Exactly.
That to me screams children need to understand this.
Yeah. But there's such, and it kind of worked in the Phantom Menace because you could brush it aside because the politics were there, but it wasn't the focus. The politics are like the focus for half this movie. And
well, it comes in at like the beginning and then closer to the end.
Yeah.
Because the politics are simply the thing that pushes the plot forward when at the point where it needs to go.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. Do the Jedi want this army?
Well, but Mace Windu says there's not enough Jedi to keep the peace.
Yes.
So that would indicate to me
that he's okay with it.
That they want the army.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I mean, anyone would look at the Republic and go, we need a military.
Yeah, I think
we just talked about that for 20 minutes before we actually started talking about the movie.
We have been incredibly lucky this past 1,000 years that no military threat has happened.
Democracy, has worked. That's the other thing. The Senate size seems insane.
Yes.
Because the crawl talks about 1,000 systems have let their intentions know that they want to leave. And then later on, just to jump ahead, Dooku throws out, and I'm sure another 10,000 systems will join us. And it's like, what madness is this? Like, honestly, if there's 10,000 people that want to go, let them go, and then it'll be easier to manage. Like,
we won't need an army.
Just let them go peacefully. Why not? Okay, well, anyway, so I guess the Jedi want an army. That's what we've decided.
Okay, yeah, we'll say that, yeah, they want this.
They want an army. And then Palpatine seems to be of the mind that there won't be a need for an army if they can negotiate for all the systems to stay.
Right.
Those are the two. So I think, Mr. Sidious is using reverse psychology right now to get really what he wants. And then the scene is broken up when Padme, Bail Organa, and Jar Jar Binks show up. Yoda is very happy to see that Padme is alive, which, okay, Yoda, I'll take it.
Sure.
I mean, of course you wouldn't want to see her dead, so that's fair. And Padme asks if they know who could have been behind the assassination. And Mace Windu, again, another curious line. He says, our intelligence thinks the attack was from miners on Naboo. Which, okay, so I have two questions about this. Jedi intelligence is a thing?
Yeah, I know. There's a whole lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff that's established in this movie that does not make sense.
Like, I'm going to come back. We're going to leave this for now. I'm going to come back to this and be like, remember that there's Jedi intelligence that we can use? And then in the book, they talk about the miners. It's some like faction on Naboo that's not happy with the current administration or something like
labor
that.
relations or something like
Taxes or, they want a wall or something. I don't know.
Keep the Gungans out.
So, but Padme thinks it's Count Dooku because he's leading the Separatists.
Yes.
And then the Separatists, her logic is kind of flawed. Because if the Separatists she doesn't want an army.
No.
But the Separatists would probably want them not to have an army.
Right, because it makes leaving easier.
So why would she unless she's seeing past that and be like, her death would probably push people, the sympathy vote, to get the army. So maybe Padme is the only one who's like on top of this. And then that's what Palpatine's like, I need to get rid of this woman.
Exactly. You need to leave because you're on to me. You might not know you're on to me, but you're on to me. And so we're trying to get rid of you.
So then, and again, this is, remember how in Phantom Menace I said that Palpatine didn't have the plan perfectly thought out. He had like several plans and like improvised. This is the point where it's like Palpatine's main plan is, again, I'll kill Padme.
Yes.
And then I'll get what I want. It's basically, I'm just going to do what I did in Phantom Menace.
Well, not only that, he's taking a page out of Newt Gunray's book. Because that's Newt Gunray's. If I kill Padme, then space taxes are better.
Well, no, but that was Sidious's whole original plan in Phantom Menace, according to my headcanon, was if I have the Trade Federation invade.
Yes.
And they kill the Queen.
Yes.
That will create sympathy to vote me into as a chancellor.
Where I can start pulling the strings.
Right? And then things got messed up, so then he used the Queen's story to win sympathy over him. Either way. So, same thing here. Kill Padme. I get the military act. So I think this is where he's like, okay, I got to start improvising a little bit. So he's like, well, I've talked to Anakin quite a bit over these years since I went to that club with him, and I know he has feelings for Panda Bear. So what I'm going to suggest is that the Jedi protect her, and they send one of her old friends, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He suggests that Obi-Wan...
Annie and Obi.
Obi and Annie. Obi and Annie? Okay, Obi and Annie protect Padme.
Yes.
And everyone seems to be kind of for it.
Yeah, it's the most genius little bit of planning Sheev's pulled off in a while. Because he's like, nobody's going to say no to Obi-Wan because it's Obi-Wan.
Which, this is my first piece of evidence I would like to put forth to the jury. Just is kind of circumstantial, but I'd like to put it forth, this is the point where the Jedi Council shifts to be on Anakin's side the whole time. So we saw in Phantom Menace, they were like against Anakin. And now at every turn in this movie, starting here, they're like, you got to trust Anakin. It's going to be fine.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the first time they're like, you know what? Anakin, Padme, that's fine.
Yeah.
Put them together.
I can't see a problem there.
It's going to be fine.
I can't see.
Because you got to have faith.
I'm not going to start singing.
So you got to have faith. So Palpatine, the last line that we have is Palpatine tells Padme, the thought of losing her would be unthinkable.
Yes.
And my question is this foreshadowing?
Maybe a little bit.
Just a tiny, tiny bit.
I think also it's just Sheev doing the whole, I must make you feel comfortable with my decisions. I'm on your side, Padme. We don't need an army, although we do, but we don't, and you're right, but we'll get rid of you, and it's fine, and have fun with Anakin.
I think Palpatine is always just playing every side of the board,
right?
Oh,
of course he is.
Like, he's got backup plans. This is the return of the Sith. This is 1,000 years in the making. Like, he's going to make this happen.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Now, the only thing I will say that I want to touch on with this is when the intelligence comes back, and it's like, Count Dooku's involved. And then instantly, I'm pretty sure it's Mace Windu who's just like, oh, no. It wasn't Count Dooku. It's not in his character. He's a former Jedi. He wouldn't assassinate anyone. And I think along with the Jedi Order being like, yeah, well, we're going to trust that Virgin's kid with the Force powers over 9,000 implicitly and not be worried, and it's fine. Don't worry. It's great. Anakin's fine. They're also like, you know what smell great is our own farts. And I think, like, because I remember seeing this as this was establishing, like this was the first time it came out, and it's like, oh, we get to learn about all the bits of the Jedi Order and how cool and great it was. And then you see it and you're just like, How did these people stick around for 1,000 generations? How are these people space cops for so long? And it's like, oh no, Jedi are always good. We can't do no wrong. Even ones who leave.
Even the ones who are mavericks, who train other mavericks, who bring this virgins to us that are too old, but we don't really go for it. And then their master leaves.
There's just so much. And I don't know if this was intentional on George Lucas's part, or he doesn't know how to write a good monastic order where people wouldn't look at it and be like, everyone involved is batshit crazy and no wonder it fell apart. But like, no wonder this falls apart.
Well, and I think part of these movies is supposed to be the fall of the Jedi Order.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned it in the last movie where I was like, it would have been nice to see the Jedi Order at their peak before they started to descend, right?
At their metaphysical peak, not at their peak of power.
Yeah, to know what a Jedi is supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
And my headcanon has always been and continues to be, and it's mostly based off the concept that most of Star Wars was based off old samurai films. Mm-hmm. The Jedi are supposed to be wandering. There's a master and there's an apprentice, and they just wander and they just do good, right?
Yeah.
There's the very concept of a Jedi Order goes against everything that Jedi should be for, right?
Right.
Because the Sith are about control and order, bringing order, right?
And structure and things like that.
The concept of a code or rules should not be a Jedi's way, right?
Exactly, but it is. So I think just from me remembering, because you got to remember there was a time before these movies where all of this was sort of like touched upon in the old EU, and as a fan of that time, it was exciting to see, especially with this movie, where you were like, okay, so the Phantom Menace came out, and honestly, we didn't really learn a lot. So this point, Attack of the Clones, you're going to learn about the Clone Wars, and that's going to be neat. And then you don't really learn about that. What you wind up seeing is, you know, that Jedi Order that, like, the Force ghosts are like, hey, Luke, you got to do this thing for the good of the Jedi. And then Luke, after the movies, goes off and makes his own Jedi Order and all that other stuff. Yeah, it was a stupid idea.
Okay, it was a stupid idea. I think we'll leave it there. We got so far into this movie. We're doing so great. We're gonna get that episode number count down real easy. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
And when we return, we will start to explore the wondrous romance that is Anakin and Padme.